So I wanted to do just a quick recap of our roadmap we did last December of where we've come from, where we're going. The last time we reviewed this, I think, was sometime in 12/8. And by that time, we actually, with myself, we got the OSPO on Intersect up and running, and then we migrated the core Cardano repos. So we're done with those two, and we're in the phase 4 of establishing the MVP for Intersect, getting us up and operationally running this year. Next week's Intersect's kickoff for the year. So that's where I invited Michael to join in, and I'll leave it open to the committee if y'all want to join virtually. I'll try and get a laptop up and running for that session. Well, it'll be Wednesday. We'll have a session on just open source in general, mostly tied to OSPO operational stuff, but it'll cross over into committee actions too. And the other thing we have completed is GovTool. That's already been copied over. There will be a second migration, but all these we're on track to complete that by the end of January. So we'll have all the stuff we need for doing pilots once we draft the strategy. I did make one change to the roadmap, which is pushing out the first draft of the open source strategy to the end of February, just because the resources to help us get that first draft together won't start until early next week, and putting a 10-day timeline on them I don't think is realistic to get that out. And then we should have the plan of action and succession for the committee by the end of February. So I just tied those two together. And by the end of April, once this phase 4 ends, we should have the open source strategy in effect. And that's our public roadmap deadline. So that's the one that we do have to keep. Any questions towards this? Okay, I think we're good on that. I just wanted to give a quick brief related to that. Let me pull up our agenda as well, just so we'll go to the policy piece with yourself, Michael.
Sure, not much has happened since last time. What I've been trying to do has been so it turns out that Intersect has a Gitbook license, and they have a Gitbook instance that's currently powering docs.intersect.org or something that has some MISC info in it. So Christian and I have been trying to get hold of the person who is running that and get it set up so that there's some sensible sync to an actual GitHub repository, so that we can actually then, because I think that's the perfect place to put kind of policy information and stuff like that. It should all go, if we've got a non-crap documentation site that's backed by a Git repository, that's ideal. And then we can move to proposing to put the policy there. I need to incorporate some of the feedback that people have given. I'm planning to strip down the policy a bit more and get rid of some stuff that isn't necessary for the first step. Yeah, I was sort of hoping we'd get the Gitbook thing set up so that it could then be pointing towards a proper home, but we haven't got there yet, mostly because I think we need to pin down Lorenzo and get some agreement about where stuff is getting published and how the spaces are organized and stuff. So
I'll invite him to the Wednesday session, so that way he'll be there in person and we can just knock it all down.
Yeah, then I can just sit on him until he sorts it out. But I think that would be very nice, and it looks like the plan is to have spaces for the committees as well, so we can just put our meeting notes on there as well. This is all good, putting stuff out in public, which is what we want. Yeah, that's about it. I can't remember if did we put something about security on the agenda, Christian?
You do have that listed. We can go ahead and transition into that.
Sure. So this is kind of policy slash. So we need to say something about security policy. So the stuff I've been writing kind of barely brushes past it, but I think we might need to do something a bit more substantial. Either we can do that alongside the other policy stuff, or maybe we should form another little working group to write that. Certainly, it seems that Kevin is interested, but it's slightly more complicated because we need to make sure that security issues go to a appropriate, trusted body who can then decide who it's safe to tell about the problem, and we probably need requests for responsible disclosure. If this problem is going to take a hard fork to fix, please accept that you're going to have to sit on it for a while, sort of thing. So yeah, I guess that's a topic of discussion, which is whether we want to that could just be the next thing we do with the policy group, or maybe we should spin off a separate little group to deal with that.
It might be a good, because the governance thing, I mean, you just have final tweaks and then we go for ratification.
Well, sure, I guess. Yeah, I mean, pending actual contact with people, which will no doubt result in more changes. Yeah, so maybe that's fine. And then in the next couple of weeks, maybe we can I can set up a meeting with Kevin and relevant people and try and draft some security stuff too.
Yeah.
Martin, do you want to be in on that as well? I feel like, yeah, you're muted, but I'm reading your lips.
Yes.
That looks like a yes. Okay, fine. I think it's not going to be. I think it's not. I still think. I think there's anything kind of controversial. It just requires some kind of arbitrary decisions to be made about who exactly is it that gets contacted, and how is that maintained, etc.
Is there a so say it's a non-Cardano related project? Is it just copy and paste across, give or take?
So I don't know. My hope is that we can write something somewhat generic. So some stuff will be Cardano specific, like the thing where we say maybe we can write some generic prose that says, please have an appropriate level of disclosure depending how long the thing takes to be released. For example, if it's a Cardano issue and it needs a hard fork, then it might be a long time. But I think we can maybe write something generic that says either send it to the TSC or this page should lists some appropriate subgroups for different areas. Here is the Cardano security insiders list or something.
Okay. I think I'll tie in either Ryan Williams or Igor just because they're on the governance technology side of it. So I think we could make it relevant or get some of their feedback. Yep. Igor is kind of writing the standards for how they want to do GovTool development, and is inspired to try and use that as policies that we might be able to adopt as well.
Well, so if we do, so I think I mentioned before, is we have this Cardano engineering handbook that is fairly light on content, but contains some. It was trying not to be too opinionated so that you don't tell people to do things that they don't want to do. But I certainly think I would like to move some of that content also into the appropriate open space once we get it. And absolutely, we can have some. If Igor has some other stuff that he thinks would fit there, that's fine. I think we should try and avoid trying too hard to set, heavyweight engineering policies, because those are hard enough to enforce in a small, tightly knit organization where you where you employ all of the people doing it, and I think are going to be borderline impossible across a heterogeneous collection of projects which are worked on by random community people. So, I think we'll see, but we don't want to. It's the worst thing is having policy that everyone ignores, because then it's like, what even is the point?
Yeah, it's always like a travel policy for the company. But okay, that works. We'll, I guess, just to make it formal, everyone on the committee say aye. We're good to make that the next initiative for the policies. Focus on security.
Security, sure. Aye.
Aye.
That's fine.
Okay. So that wraps that up. I'll transition over into the strategy technical working group. Just quick notes from Sandip. I'll let him officially lead it. But we do have his feedback. We just need to figure out how the next steps of taking this and rolling it into the strategy. I'm going to have a working session next week with the guys who will help get the first draft out before we put it for community collaboration. And kind of focus on these pieces individually. I'm kind of thinking there needs to be a section towards each, and at least lightly touch it in the first draft to each one. But just want to re-highlight this here, and I'll reshare it so we can get more thoughts put towards these pieces. But we did get sufficient. I think we got 3 or 4 survey responses. That's closed now, so we might have little edits to this. But yeah, that's where this is sitting for the moment. I'll share it to the chat as well.
I do think we might want to cut that down. I do think this thing is too big.
Well, I imagine the strategy. So the strategy is probably going to target quite a few things, and then we'll have amendments in the future. But we're going to test what works via pilots. So
sure, just that if your strategy says we will do everything, then that's about like says
no.
Really say we'll do nothing.
Which I can share high level too, since we're on OSPO details. But so high bucket, I did one of those Marcom fancy things where you put a bunch of words on a slide and then you focus on what you actually want to work on. So the 5 things that the OSPO is going to focus on is policy, governance, metrics, reporting, release management, documentation standards, compliance, licensing, and strategy. Everything else is nice to have, but we're not going to do that just yet. So I am going to focus on these 6 items. And I think it kind of overlaps with where we're going with the committee anyway. So yeah, I'll try and tailor the strategy in a similar way. But first, we need to find out what we want to focus on. So any questions on that? That's strategy piece. I'll let Sandip talk more next week or on our next session. The next thing we had was communication feedback on the survey that you had, Michael.
Oh yeah, well again, sorry, nothing much has changed here since I read this slightly before Christmas, but I think maybe we should try and have another go at getting it out to more people, but I would like to try and it's not super urgent, but it is important, which is to try and actually decide what communications channels we're going to try and get our projects to use, and it has to be something open and easily accessible. The most acceptable option was Matrix. Most people who said they would be okay with it. I suggest we go for that. But before we did recommend anything like that, we want to check with everybody who cares. So try and check with at least check with all the project leads and with anyone in the Intersect organization who might be going to object because they'll have to install a Matrix client. But
I'll have an answer from the Intersect side Tuesday. They're doing a whole committee review on stuff associated.
I just don't want someone to then say, no, Intersect is someone senior in Intersect has decided that everything shall use Discord and there shall be nothing else, because this is the sort of thing that someone might say. So
I don't think so. The only thing they probably care is budget wise.
Well, it's free, so that's
let's explore that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we'll have an issue. I'll square off with the guy if he does. So no worries there. And I should have clarity too related to that about. So Tuesday is going to be a big working session on the committee's areas of responsibility, and I'll have clear instructions as to what the committees are able to enact and make decisions on, and Intersect adopts just because the committee said so.
Yeah.
And we'll have
multiple powers.
Yeah, we'll have powers to actually make decisions, recommendations, and things. And we'll actually have a structure to the TSC and its future development and where we stand within its umbrella as well. So, yeah, exciting things. Now we're moving out of the advisory body more into the standing committee status. So I'll give a brief update. Actually, it probably would be good to keep the Friday session, and I'll make time just to brief everyone on what our outcomes are, high level, related to that. Any questions related to communication stuff? I'll taking note to get the Intersect side of it coordinated, so there's no objections there. Okay. The next thing is project incubation. I have rough draft from previous research done. I need to put that into a formal paper and submit that for review. Just about how, if we want to adopt projects or if people want projects hosted by Intersect, how that works and the different maturity statuses. So with next week being hectic, I should have that out by the end of January. I guess that's where the timeline overlaps. Yeah, by the 26th. And then we can figure out where we take that from there, if we want to adopt it, amend it, etc. That's the update on that. And yeah, I don't have anything else listed other than we're going fully public. So I'll work on getting our meeting minutes out once we get the Gitbook instance.
Yep, that would be nice.
Established. So I'll conclude the committee agenda. Any open items anyone would like to bring up? Things we should focus on? Concerns? Okay. That takes care of that for today then. I will also work on getting the roadmap out and share that in the Discord as well, just so we everyone knows what we're trying to go for. I'm also working on planning for open source goals from the Intersect side through Q4, and I'm getting a draft together today. I'm going to submit that for y'all's feedback about things we might need to aim for, just because Intersect's adopting the PI planning cadence. So I have to have some rough milestones of where we want to go after the strategy and pilots. But yeah, that's that. So welcome back. Happy 2024.
All right.
Yeah. We're going to be moving fast. And I will have exciting updates next week because I'll finally know Intersect's full game and how we move forward. Okay. I'll share the meeting after this.
Good.
Thank y'all.
Next time, Mike.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.